Today on this 2017 Nissan Rogue, we're going to review and install the Firestone Coil-Rite air helper springs, part number F4175. This is what they look like when they're installed in the vehicle. With this airbag inside your coil, this will provide much better handling than without going down the road. How it does that? When your coil compresses, your airbag's inside the spring, and with the air pressure, it expands it back up to provide additional support and push up against the weight that you're carrying. This will also help you with steering and balance of the vehicle. For instance, when the vehicle sways to one side, the air spring will counteract that force and help keep your ride level. Now you fill your airbags and adjust their capacity with these two airline fittings here and here. Bear in mind that these bags are rated for 500 pounds of load capacity. Always double check with your manufacturer to make sure your vehicle can carry that kind of weight as well. This will not increase the capacity. Before we get started, let's go ahead and check out our stock height on our vehicle first. Measuring from the ground to top of the fender well, I got about 31 inches. Now I put some weight in our cargo carrier. In typical application, you can see how the vehicle squats now. We'll check it again. And we're about 29 inches. So lost a couple inches there. Let's go over our speed bumps and check out how the suspensions work by itself and see how it handles. And you can see how our suspension is going up and down. As I drive it, I can feel that it's kind of shaking the vehicle a little bit. I can feel it in the steering wheel. It's kind of like you can definitely feel the weight there kind of pushing the vehicle. We got our airbags installed with 30 psi inside them. Let's go ahead and check our measurement again. We have our same weight in the back. Original measurement was 31 inches, and with the weight it went down to 29 inches. So we brought it back up to 30 inches, so losing about an inch of travel. That's not so bad. My take on before and after our install. Before, I could definitely feel the weight pushing around on the back of the vehicle as we go over the bumps. And also, just by simple just turning around our parking lot, I can feel it actually a little bit back there. Now with our bags in place, as I'm doing this, the car handles or feels more like it was unloaded. But you can still tell it's back there, but it definitely puts a little more confidence in your turns. And as we go over bumps, after a few bumps, I felt comfortable enough to go just a little bit faster than it was without the airbags in place. Now the first part of our install is actually to take the weight off the suspension, so jack it up by the frame, so the axle hangs down, and you have maximum amount of springs, distance between the spring coils. We'll move on to getting our airbags ready to install. Got one bag here. I have supplied airline tubing, which I've actually cut in half, one for each side. And then in the package, there's these little red plugs. We'll create a vacuum by compressing the air spring here. Pretty durable stuff, so we can smash them pretty good to get all the air out, and it makes it easier to get in between the coils. So we'll start off by taking the airline tubing. We'll stick it in there until it stops, and push it in again. Pull back, make sure it's tight. You also always want to start off with a fresh end, so cut the end as square as possible before you install it. Now you can lean on these, step on them however you want. I actually found using a piece of 2x8 and pressing on it that way, maybe get it started by folding this over. This helps get all the air out as possible. Then take the other end of the airline, take the little plug, put it in the airline, and that creates our vacuum. This will stay flat. Back under the vehicle, and we're on a passenger side by the way, we're going to take our line that's plugged up, the end of it. I'm going to put it through a coil here and out a pre-existing opening at the bottom here. There you go. Take all our slack out through it. Get the airline out of our way for now. We'll take this end, we'll put it in the coil, and just basically work its way up in here. This is where it's going to take some patience and some hand strength. And let's get it started in there for now. And then you can probably use some spray lubricant like some silicone spray and any tool with a blunt end on it to help push it up into place. Once you have it pushed in about this far, make sure you pull your line through as best as possible and push it in. We should have just enough room to pop it up in there. Once we have it in there fully, we'll pull the plug and let it inflate on its own. And then it'll be a little bit more easier to move around. Okay, that's installed in our coil here. Now our line gets routed up and over suspension and out towards the end of the vehicle. In our case, it's going to be next to the hitch. Before I run my line up to the front, I'm actually going to take part of this heat shielding. There's two pieces that come with the kit, one for each side. This is generally if you're going to be really close to the exhaust, then you can use this. I was going to run it up in here. I like to use this to go around the corner right here. So when it's in place, it'll sit like this. I'll show you how I routed my airline. Went up from the bottom, straight up to this wire harness right here. And I zip tied it to help keep it up and out of the way. Went completely over the subframe for the rear suspension, behind the shock, and then I came up over the heat shield right here and routed over the heat shield up to the hitch, where I zip tied it some more along the hitch, the top of the hitch, where it come out to the other side here to meet our other airline tubing. Once you have one side done, you get to do it all over again on the other side. We're at the point of having to decide where to mount our airline fittings on the ends here. There's really not much here to really work with. So what I'm going to do is use a wiring bracket that attaches to the hitch. And I'm going to use these pre-existing holes as pilot holes to install the airline fittings here. I'm going to take this bracket, I'm going to bend it 90 degrees so we can easily attach our air chuck to it to inflate the airbags. Okay. Using a pry bar, I'm just going to bend it over as far as I can go. And if you want, take a hammer to flatten this part out. Using a drill bit to match the end of our airline fitting here, which is going to be a 5/16, we'll just drill out two of the holes that we want for our airline fittings. Quick test fit, we're good to go. We'll put our bracket into place. We'll take the supplied clamp that comes with the bracket, run it around the hitch, run it back through itself here, lock it down by pushing the bolt back in, and then you can tighten it up using a 5/16 socket or nut driver. Before we put our airline fitting into place, a little prep work, we'll put one of the supplied washers onto it, and then we'll put this into our bracket. Then the other side, we'll get another flat washer, and then a nut. And we'll tighten down the nut using a 1/2 inch or a 13mm socket. One's done here, one more time over here. Now you want to cut your airline tubing to length, maybe leave a little bit extra loop in there in case you have to take it apart and redo it. Sometimes you have to do that because it doesn't get a good seal. Make sure you're a square cut on the end, push like the other, just like at the airbag, push it until it stops, then push it in again. Then pull back and make sure it has a good catch on it. And if you ever need to take this apart, push in with the airline and pull back with the ring here at the same time, and it will come apart. There. You can use a sharp knife or any decent tubing cutter will work. Just make sure your cut is square. Now you can see here, got our line zip tied and out of the way. I still have some excess if we ever need to make some adjustments. Next up, we'll check for air leaks. What we're going to do is put about 10-15 pounds of pressure in each bag. We're going to spray it down with some soapy water to check for leaks. One little trick at the bags, I'll show you what to look for. Before we inflate the airbags, take any round tool, like an extension here, to help prop the airbag a little bit. That way, so when we inflate it, we can still have access to airline fitting and then check it for leaks that way, because once it's filled up, it's going to push down into the well here. You'll never see it again. Put some soapy water on there. Let it settle for a little bit. Wait a few minutes and look for some tiny bubbles coming out where the airline goes in. You see how this one is bubbling still and this one's not. This is good, so we'll have to take this line, loosen it up, recut it, and put it back in and try again. And that's how it's supposed to look like, no bubbles. Yay! And that'll finish it for the Firestone Coil-Rite air helper springs, part number F4175 on this 2017 Nissan Rogue.